So EA have just been bought for $55 billion in the biggest purchase ever that's going to take a company private. But what will that mean for the F1 games? So first of all, this fund is being led by the Saudi Arabia Investment Fund, along with Donald Trump's son-in-law, and they're putting up about $36 billion in capital, cash. But they're also using $20 billion debt. They're borrowing money from JP Morgan primarily, and it's going to be a leveraged buyout, which means basically EA is going to have $20 billion worth of debt after this purchase goes through, which is going to go through in about a year's time or so. So that's a lot of money. And I think that could be one of the biggest influences for the future of the F1 game, because EA are going to have to concentrate on settling this debt. Now, they have talked about reducing costs, and a lot of speculation that that's going to be by using a lot more AI in what they do now, so maybe more staff layoffs and stuff, and I think we'll all have our own opinions on what that could be. But look, it could be a positive thing. I think, for example, in the F1 game alone, imagine having an actual engineer, an AI-led engineer that you can voice chat with during the race, and they can properly answer your questions in natural form while you ask them questions in natural form. That would actually be really cool, but that's obviously quite a simplistic use of AI. So we'll see where that goes. But I think for me, it's more important to look back at what happened to the F1 game when Codemasters was bought by EA, because it's sort of a similar transition. Codemasters was a sort of family-run business, effectively, that was a passionate group of people that was trying to make the best F1 game they could. And obviously, you know, they still had to concentrate on profit, as any company does. But I think they overall did a reasonable job. And then EA bought Codemasters. And to me, the biggest changes, there's been two major changes really since EA bought Codemasters. One has been a massive increase in marketing budget. They've done things like sponsor Max Verstappen, and they pay, you know, huge celebrities to play their games and things like that. Like, the marketing budget is probably 10 times what it was under Codemasters. It's absolutely clear. They just chuck money at marketing the game. But secondly, it feels like they've been pressured to concentrate on new features, back-of-the-box features, I call it, bit of an old term, but basically things to make you buy this year's game. Doesn't really matter whether you've added depth. For example, in the F1 game, for a few years now, there's been the audio, or I don't know if it's audio, actually, it might just be visual, of lap cars may now overtake under a safety car. Yet that's never been implemented. So they clearly plan to introduce that and then just have never followed through with it. Because if you're EA, you go, well, look, we're spending this much on marketing. We need to sell this many games. We need to sell more games. How do you sell more games? Is it by adding a feature that allows cars to unlap themselves under a safety car? Is that a back-of-the-box feature? Is that a feature that's really going to make you buy the next F1 game? Well, we've probably got a bit of a hardcore audience here. So maybe, for me personally, I'd actually be really keen for that feature. But obviously, features like a new episode of story mode, or overhauling my team mode, or introducing F1 World. These are much bigger things that are in theory going to appeal to a really broad audience and make people buy this year's game. So that's been the two changes: massively increased marketing budget and a concentration on back-of-the-box features over the sort of nitty-gritty, more passion-led features of the game. So how will it change when EA get bought again and most importantly, taken private? Well, it will mean that, in theory, they don't have to concentrate as much on profit, because they're not going to be led by shareholders in the same way. They're not fundamentally set up to make as much profit as they possibly can for their shareholders. So in theory, on one hand, it could be good. On the other hand, of course, they're going to have $20 billion of debt. So clearly they're going to have to make some money, and people don't put up this kind of money in investment in the business if they're not planning to get a lot of money out of it. It's not like it's being bought by, F1 themselves or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not being bought. This is obviously just for the F1 game. They've got lots of other games like The Sims and FC titles, but I'm concentrating on the F1 game here. It's not like it's been bought as a passion project necessarily. Obviously, time will tell. We don't know exactly how things are going to change. I think if I had to guess, I would say not much is going to change. We're fortunate that the F1 game is a pretty big game. It's a pretty major title. As far as I'm aware, it makes reasonably good money. So things should continue as they are, but, you know, they talked about, no, nothing's really going to change when EA bought Codemasters, and things did change because the priority of the company naturally changes. So things will change. I think the biggest change is going to be if they decide to go all in on AI. If they decide, look, we've bought the company for this much money, we want to go all in for AI, we want to cut costs, so we're going to, lay off X number of staff and you've got to replace their work with AI. Now that could have good results in some way, but it could obviously have bad results in other ways. So it's a little bit too early to tell, honestly, but it's going to be huge news. It's going to change some things for sure. I think the F1 game will continue. I think it's not going to excessively change what they do. And look, the people within EA right now will be going, well, it's probably not going to change anything. You know, we're still going to work in here. We're still going to be someone like Lee Mather, the lead principal game designer or something like that, with his job title, basically the boss of the F1 game outside of producers and stuff. He will presumably stay on, and, you know, his job is going to remain the same to make the best F1 game he can. So it's not like it's going to be, you know, they're going to clear everybody out and it's just going to be pure AI development from here. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to be a crazy big change, but we'll see. I mean, let's be honest, EA is not the most popular of companies. Codemasters was known as Bugmasters for potentially making buggy games. And look, the Saudi investment firm isn't particularly popular either. So there's an unpopular group of people there combining to make the game. But yeah, if I had to predict right now what is really going to change in a year or 2 or 3 or 5 years' time, other than the negative connotations of being attached to Saudi Arabia, whatever you may think of that company or country, and their investments and their oil money, I think it's going to be positive. I think, you know, EA were driven by profit, only profit, because they were beholden to their shareholders. And yes, okay, this new setup is going to have a lot of debt, but they're not in theory driven by shareholders. It's going to be a private company. So they know what they've just bought into. You know what I mean? They know they've just bought a game company. So in theory, they could just choose to concentrate on the games more. I don't know. Hopefully, at least, it isn't going to change too much, because I don't want the F1 game to massively change as much as I know a lot of people would like the license to be moved to somebody else. EA put a hell of a lot of money, a hell of a lot of investment into the F1 game. And on the whole, they do a decent job of producing a decent game each year. I would personally like to see the license shared with another developer, maybe every other year, you know, they swap, or even they run side by side with another developer, and we get 2 F1 games a year. I would personally be a fan of that, but obviously with the amount of money that EA's got, and this new investor group clearly isn't short on money, I doubt, though, you know, they're going to just give F1 a load of money to keep exclusive, aren't they? So anyway, I guess we'll see. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think of it. It'll be super interesting to look at this from an F1 game standpoint, not just a broader EA and FC and Madden and The Sims and whatever else standpoint. So let me know what you guys think, and whether you think it's going to change, whether you think it's going to be a good thing, a bad thing. Obviously, like I said, we've got unpopular groups combining, so I imagine the sentiment will probably be negative down in the comment section, but let's see. And I guess let's just see where it goes. Now, I will say it is not completely approved yet. It's not completely over the line. The board of directors has approved it, but the stakeholders haven't approved it. But they gave a 25% premium over the stock price, so there's no reason they wouldn't approve it. And of course, it needs to be approved by the regulatory authorities, which I know the Activision Blizzard takeover by Microsoft struggled with that. But I think this one will probably struggle less, because it's just a purchase. It's not a merger. It's a purchase of a company. It's a different owner. So I can't imagine this will have too many negatives. But in theory, this may not happen yet. So I guess we'll see. Let me know down in the comments what you think, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.